everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. My name is Ben Jackson. I am once again hosting this episode, and Scott and Joris are here. We've got the trident 2 weeks in a row. I feel like this is some sort of record, guys.
It does feel like that a little bit, doesn't it? It's always a pleasure when the three of us are together. Personal circumstances have meant that's been a little bit more difficult for us for a while now, but we're on a good form, good run of consistency at the moment. So let's see if we can keep it up.
It took us less long to record twice in a row than it took Standard to win twice in a row last season and the season before that, I guess. Even I don't know. I don't remember how long that run went, but long for sure. Also, unrelated maybe, but I was talking to Track Radio last Friday in the UK and had an interview, and they asked which team they should follow. Naturally, I took Genk. I mean, there was no beating out the bush there. I was like very chauvinistic, I guess you could say, in that sense. But my reasoning was they try to play attacking football, but they can't defend. And I fear I gave them one day later they showed why. And at least I wasn't completely lying, at least. Of course, there was... Well, not completely lying. I wasn't lying at all. I even admitted that I am leaning towards... Well, not leaning towards. I am a fan, so I'm going to say them. But there's these reasons. Sadly, they were all true. Part of it could have been true. Then I would have been happy. And it looked like it for quite some time.
Is that what they call the chaos theory?
I mean, you've cemented your place in their mind as an expert on Belgian football very, very comfortably there, because you tell them who to support, you tell them what's going to happen, and they go and draw 4-4. So I think, yeah, you can expect some more conversations with the guys over there, Joris, that's for sure.
While we're on the subject of that and us knowing what we're talking about, which I think we do, it was only recently we were talking about Jules Ahoka. You know what I mean? And even, Ben, who mentioned him as his player of the week, what was that, a couple of weeks ago now? He's already gone. He's already gone for a massive fee. So, even our crystal ball hadn't warmed up yet. That's incredible.
Sunderland they are just funding the Belgian Pro League, aren't they, at the moment? They are just picking up the gems. They are picking up the gems. Sadiki and Ahoka in the midfield. Angulo scored fantastic free kick at the weekend as well. They got Talby, obviously. Who's next, to be honest? Who's next after this weekend? Michael Frey to Sunderland midway through the season, as he's currently, of course, top scorer. Anthony Valencia. Who knows? There's plenty of options there, aren't they? Let's quickly run through the results. Obviously, we had a slightly shorter kind of week. Well, not really shorter, but we had less games because of the European fixtures. Friday night kicked off Standard Liège. They beat Raal 2-0. That's 3 defeats from 3 for Raal. Aliou Dramé coming off the bench, scoring twice. Me declaring this is an incredible debut and then realising he's already played twice. So absolutely not an incredible debut, but incredible first couple of goals. I'll give him that. So instantly a fan favourite there. Results of again, we are going to talk about them this evening, and who'd have thought we'd be doing that in a positive way after how we spoke about them during the pre-season preview. They beat Beveren 4-0, 4 pretty good goals as well. Charleroi also unbeaten. They beat Mechelen 2-0. They're about to lose Parfait Guegon by the look of it. He's going to Saudi Arabia. But even without him, they've been playing pretty good. The game Joris mentioned, 4-1 to Genk in the 79th minute. By the end of the game, it's 4-4. Guess who turned it off in the 79th minute? Yeah, that was me. Lommel, they beat the worst defence in the Pro League in Westel. We're going to talk about them as well. Great way to win your first game, isn't it, in the league, just winning 4-0. Club Brugge, they beat Cercle Brugge 1-0 in the Bruges derby. I don't know if you guys were watching this one, but it was really interesting us for because they were inside the huddle at the beginning. And Hans van Acker, I think he just made the perfect point, which sums up Cercle Brugge to me. He was like, guys, we can't start slow. We can't give up. We can't not fight in this game. Like, no matter what's going to happen, these guys are going to fight and they're not going to give up. But we have more quality than them, and that will win us the game. And it did. He was right. So Hans does actually know what he's talking about. Fair play to him. Well, I think they probably should have won by more in that game, but Cercle Brugge, a good sign. I think we're not going to speak about them much on this podcast, but I think from the 3 games, it's a positive sign of team spirit and kind of fighting and stuff like that, which I think is really, really important. But we've got to talk about Zulte Waregem, guys. That's 3 games unbeaten to start the league season. Obviously, they beat Genk opening game. Perhaps fortunately, I think we can say drew 0-0 with Union. Perhaps unfortunately to draw 0-0 in that game. They then welcome Beveren, which you'd think on paper should have been a tougher game than it was. They didn't have a lot of the ball, but when they did have it, they were really, really effective. 4 goals. Atroc with 2 goals. I think it was his second one was on the counter attack, and it was just like, yeah, this guy. I can't remember which one of you guys mentioned him in the pre-season previews as one you're kind of interested in watching. So feel free to take your claim to that during your little spiel about how you think about them, because yeah, whoever said that, he's looking good. Amenta's finished as well. Like, I did not expect him to be able to do that. He seems to always a really good link-up player. Like, I'm not saying he's a bad player or anything like that, but his finish is really, really nice. The orchestrator, I know Scott, you're probably going to talk a bit about the man that kind of orchestrates things for them. But before we came on, we were saying how they just look really, really organised. Like, really, really organised, solid. And it's not like they haven't got new players in or anything like that. Like, I think it's early days, but Michael Beale he's done something right within the first few weeks, clearly, to get these guys solid, organised, and playing some interesting and nice football. Like, Hedel had 2 assists. That's really nice to see him contributing, because they signed him as kind of this, like, he's going to be an exciting player and like he's one for the future. And it's like, are we now going to see that? Ake's been good. The kind of back line. Boston's back in goal and playing pretty well. Like, who'd have thought that? Like, I thought he was done, but he hung around for another season. Gabriel might struggle to get back into the team when he does come back to being fit and stuff. So yeah, it was a really, really good performance, and I think they definitely deserve some talking about. Scott, I know one of their players is your player of the week, so we may as well jump straight to that now, and you can kind of wax lyrical about him, because he's one player I picked out in the pre-season preview that I was like, I just think he's a really, really quality player. Joris obviously knows a lot about him as well from his time at Genk, but he's left, he's gone to Zulte Waregem, and it's paid dividends because he's getting a lot of game time, and he is their kind of key midfielder.
Yeah, let's do that. My player of the week is Thomas Klaas. There's a bit of a theme developing for me, actually. This is the second week in a row my player of the week has been a young Belgian player, and I promise it's not deliberate. It's just who has floated my boat. And it is a young Belgian player for the second week in a row. Yeah, he's 22 now. Come from Young Genk, of course. He was the captain there. Wished away by Zulte Waregem to play regular top flight football. And yeah, I mean, I think he's found a coach in Michael Beale who might be able to take him to another level. That's kind of my feeling. He was very good this weekend, and I think his game is developing. He's becoming the player that I think Genk thought he could be. And there are some signs of progression. I mean, created the most chances this weekend, took the most shots, scored a goal, 7 passes into the final third as well. So that progressive kind of box-to-box midfielder seems to be clicking for Zulte at the moment. And yeah, I mean, strong technically, good reading of the game. His positioning is quite good. And there's just maybe a sense that this season he could add some goals and assists and build on everything that is good about his natural game as well. A few weeks ago, I say a few weeks ago, it was actually longer than that. It was probably 6 or 7 weeks ago, actually. I wrote a piece for the Substack on Michael Beale joining Zulte, and that piece was called In Pursuit of Evolution. And it was really about why Zulte had gone with Michael Beale and what they were trying to do there. And it's just so interesting we're talking about them positively so early. Because that seems to be what's happening there. There is an evolution in their style. They wanted to be more front-footed, more progressive. They wanted to dominate games and be more offensive in their style. And I think that's how they've started this season. So what Michael Beale's done very successfully so far is he's communicated a way of playing that everybody seems to be buying into, because they're definitely responding to it at the moment. And there's a really lovely balance about the side as well. There's a defensive solidity there. They look like they have goals in them most of the time when they're going forward. Their efficiency is good. They're making good choices, which is a good indication that this is a well-coached side. Remember, Michael Beale's got a pretty strong track record in working with young players at different stages of their development as well, within academy setups, but also within senior sides as well. So he knows how to communicate ideas quickly and easily and get players to kind of buy into it. But this is also a side that lost two really big players as well. And you would never really know looking at them in the moment. I mean, obviously, Jep Ehrenberg's gone. He went to Genk. Apoku's gone. You know, both important for them last season. Big players. You know, they've been forgotten. That's one of the biggest testimonies you can kind of give, compliments that you could give Zilta at the moment. You mentioned Jalan Atrok. I think it was me that said this could be an interesting one. He's had a positive start. Again, good this weekend. It's interesting, of course, because Michael Beale had his touchline ban from his red card, so he was watching the game from inside one of the corporate boxes, and the cameraman at DAZN was having a great time capturing all of his reactions to the goals. That was almost more entertaining than some parts of the game, to be honest, this weekend. But yeah, I think they're getting lots of things right now and definitely surprising us. And I think a lot of the work they've done in pre-season has obviously been very good. The key question, of course, is we're only 3 weeks in. Can they continue it? But when you look at their fixtures coming up, Westerlo away, that holds no fear for them at the moment for reasons we'll get to shortly. Kortrijk away, another one that very much has, you know, points in it for them. And then Charleroi at home, which could be an interesting game because, again, they've had a good start to the season. But at the moment, I see no signs for the next few weeks for, you know, this good start to falter, really.
Yeah, Scott said a lot there already. Klaas said he decided to leave Genk, of course, as well after narrowly making his debut, because I do feel like he's the type of player, at least, that Genk could use currently as well, that they're maybe lacking. Whether that's at the high, whether he's really at the level to bring it as well, that's another question. But the type of player that's really, something that is lacking a bit at Genk as well. And he felt he wouldn't get any chances soon, I guess. And decided to leave, unfortunately. The last, a little more than a year ago now. But yeah, he had a great season last year and this year, indeed. A great goal here. He's probably one of the standout players. For sure, one of the standout players for Zulte Waregem in that early good start of the season for them. And and under Michael Beale, under the reins of Michael Beale, for sure. So yeah, that's clearly a good start for him and for them. And just brilliant goal actually this weekend, of course. And then the whole of Zulte Waregem, has been mentioned, kind of could deserve a shout for last weekend's performance. Or maybe Beveren was Beveren was also not at their own levels. Because of Zulte Waregem probably as well. The way they played, they really blew him off the park, and it could have been even an even higher scoreline than the 4-0, to be honest. That they still got away with some things. Could have been a lot worse still. So a very different Beveren side as well. To very quickly jump on them as well as last weekend as well. The last week, of course, they were of course also a little bit lucky to win the game, but their performance in general was okay, was good. This weekend, not so much. Clearly, they seem to have collectively lost the sense of how to play football, that's has bitten them in the arse very hard this time, and Zulte Waregem were up for it. And 7 points out of possible 9 after these 3 fixtures, only 1 goal conceded. Compliments to them for sure so far.
Yeah, no, it's weird, isn't it? Because for Beveren as well, it's like they had those 2 positive performances, like the Antwerp one. They were unlucky to lose that because of how Antwerp just rallied back late on, which seems to be a theme for Antwerp in 2 of their opening 3 games, doesn't it? So, yeah, and if you think about how kind of experienced that back 4 is, but they were just like really pushing so high. I think it must have been Jans on the right hand side. He was pushing so high, and they were just Gomez had to do so much kind of covering as Beale's got the kind of the way he's playing with these kind of runners from deep and stuff like that just seem to really be effective when they're just not having the ball, which is really important. I think it's important because, like, you'd expect them at home against the Beveren side not to have. Let me just bring up the numbers again. They 38% of the ball. Like that's all they had. They were like, Bevan, you can have 62%. You got to try and break us down. I think Bill's realised, yeah, we've got a big man who can hold the ball up and lay it off. Like we don't actually need to get on the front foot and have the ball. We can kind of just. I know, Scott, you said they want to play attacking football, but they can play attacking football in that way as well, can't they? They can just be like, we're just going to be quick and decisive when we get it, and that's what they were. And they were really like. Yeah, you just thought they were going to score every time they went forward. Like every time they got the ball, it's like Bevan just looked kind of at 6s and 7s, and I think they kind of got a little bit caught out. Tim Backinston as well. It's kind of like, what do we do? We just kind of actually do we try and just not concede any more goals, or do we go for kind of trying to get back into the game? And I think they got caught in between the two things. So interested to see how they kind of bounce back. Whereas results of our game, it's kind of like you said, that they've got a nice little run in coming, and they had. If you'd shown them on paper, at least, like Genk and Union are two pretty tough games to start the season with on paper. Whether we now think that or not, I don't know. But they've come through those, and then they've come and played Beveren. And how often, like for Beveren as well, they've come through 2 games, and they probably were like, "Oh, we're going to play Zulte Waregem." Like on paper, again, would have been confident going into that one. But it's funny how these things work so early in the season. Anything else to add on those guys before we dip to the other side of the table?
I think Ben's point about the offensive football aspect here is important. 38%, very interesting. The modern game now, for a long time, football was all about possession. It's much, much less so now, and it's actually about what you do with the possession that you do have. There's another good point. Beveren having far more possession, but doing absolutely bugger all with it effectively. Zulte, a well-coached side, well-structured, know what they're doing, are confident enough playing against a side, as Ben was saying, who they know probably can't break them down, but they know what they're going to do when they do have the ball. And that takes kind of confidence and a certain degree of technical ability. But so, yeah, I mean, there's something quite modern tactically, I think, about Zulte under Michael Beale already. If they can continue this for another few weeks, they could have a season, far exceeding probably their own expectations as well. But there's a lot of coaches that have come into clubs this season with the kind of remit of changing the mentality and the mindset. I think that's the case with Antwerp a little bit, certainly the case with Beveren, definitely the case at Kortrijk under Jonkier. He's trying to talk up, the way that they approach their own game and the way that people see them. And I think that's definitely a choice Zulte have made this summer. They're the one side at the moment who it looks like it's working for.
Yeah, it is. And I think let's not getting ahead of ourselves too much. Like obviously there's still plenty of the season left and things can still go dramatically downhill. But my one worry would be at this moment in time is like, let's be honest, I don't think Michael Beale sees Zulte Waregem as anything but a stepping stone to get back into kind of like maybe an English football or Scottish football again or something like that. And the better they do, the more likelihood of him doing that is. So it's kind of like, I wonder what their plan is if that happens, because they must know that. They must be like, look, we've offered him this chance to come and do this here. And they've done it in the past. I mean, do you remember they signed, is it Seda Berahino came in to try and rebuild his career? Didn't quite work, but it was kind of like you can come in, can you kind of rediscover your form? And he's had some, like, I can't remember, there's an interview with him about it. It's really interesting, kind of like why he did it. And if I remember, he did actually enjoy like kind of the idea of it and trying to do it. It just didn't really work because I think mentally there were so many other things going on for Berahino with kind of like how he started, like again, kind of he like exploded onto the scene and then things struggled, but then he comes to Zulte Waregem to try and do that. So it's a good way of doing things, like trying to offer this to kind of to people and stuff. But you kind of run the risk, don't you, that he will be ambitious to go back. I think it'll be crazy to think that he's Zulte Waregem through and through and it's now in his blood. Do you know what I mean? But he could also think that actually it depends on the job as well, doesn't it? Because he could look and be like, actually, if I stick in this and maybe push through like a European spot, like I don't think this is going to happen. I'm not saying that Zulte Waregem going to qualify for Europe, but that he could be thinking, if I can do something like that, maybe I elevate myself into another kind of job market and job level. I don't know, but I think it's definitely one of the kind of, it'll be something that hangs over them all season, depending on how they do. Yeah, and another Yeah, I feel a bit mean saying this because for some people this will sound really disrespectful, but I mean this in the most respectful way. Amenta kind of gives me, he's kind of an Emil Heskey vibes. For those that remember Emil Heskey, just like really, really good as like certain things. But if you just look at his numbers, you will never really get the full picture of him because you won't be like, he's a prolific goal scorer, he's going to bang loads of goals in. But like, you ask all the strikers who they love playing with, and look, so many of them will be like, I love playing with Emil Heskey because he was just like his off the ball, his movement, his kind of like link up play and stuff like that. That's what I think a mentor is. He's really good at that sort of stuff. And like, I feel like I could see like an English club coming in to sign him and all their fans being like, what? We're signing a player that scores like 5 goals a season. It's like, no, like you're signing a player that can work in a certain way and do certain things. Which is a bit like, I remember, this is a massive tangent, but when Sebastian Haller joined West Ham, and it was kind of like the way he played in Frankfurt was very similar to a mentor. It's like he's a link man, he's like bringing everyone together and doing that. And suddenly West Ham are like, you need to score loads of goals. It's like that wasn't his game or something like that. So I feel like a mentor, like he's very, very good at what he does, but if you don't watch him, you don't really understand it until like you're watching the league every single week. So I can see him getting a move and suddenly people being like, who is this guy? And him being asked to do something completely different and it just not working. But he's definitely one that he could, assists are definitely going to be his thing this season. Speaking of assists, Westel are just dishing them out left, right, and centre to any team that wants them. We've got to talk about. I think I mentioned it last week, guys, about how they've obviously rejigged the kind of the defence. Youngdale's still in goal, and we can debate whether we think he's a good goalkeeper or not. But the defence has kind of been rejigged, and it's shipping goals left, right, and centre. Then I put something out about it. I can't remember where, but I put something out about it, and then someone kind of came back who I presume is a fan of Wrestlers and watches their games. He's like, the defense, but it's like the midfield isn't working for them either. Like it's not providing any sort of defensive cover. So I was like, oh, that's really weird because like Haspelat has been such a good player for them over the past few seasons and stuff like that. But I think he's missed every single game to start the season through injury. And I mean, clearly that is a huge, huge miss for them at the moment. But I hate saying it, but Sharai is definitely on a hot seat, isn't he? With that ownership and the money that they're willing to spend, like how much longer can he go before he has to do something drastic to turn us around and keep his job again?
This is another really interesting one because you've got two sides of the same coin a little bit. We've just been talking about Zalta, doing surprisingly well at the start of the season, playing a lot of good football, looking good all across the pitch. Very young side, Zalta. Zalta's squad is the third youngest, I think, at the moment in the Pro League. Westerlo's, interestingly, is the youngest. For a long time, or at least the best part of the last couple of years, maybe even 3, it's been Circle. But they pip Circle now. Westerlo have the youngest squad. Now, we know that youth is the way to go. There's nothing critical in saying that, but I think it kind of highlights what happens if maybe you have not enough balance. Zalta do have a balance. Not sure Westerlo do. Maybe one of the sides is better coached than the others. I think Sharai is a little bit surprised. This is just my view, but I think he's a wee bit surprised by quite how catastrophically they've started really kind of across the pitch. I don't think he was kind of expecting that. I mean, he's come out the last couple of days with some quite strong words talking about how unacceptable the performances have been and how they're basically not doing the basic things. So they're not winning duels, they're not winning second balls, they're not defending, as everyone can see. That's the most obvious bit. They're just not doing basic things. Got to wonder why that is. I mean, sometimes is that an influx of players? I don't know, because a lot of the players that they've brought in come in kind of quite late in pre-season, I think, as well, which sometimes obviously is a factor. There's been a degree of change at the back as well. Some of the experience, as Ben was saying, has gone for the moment. So I think this has taken them by surprise, if I'm honest, and Sharai's reaction kind of tells me that he's laying down the law a little bit in the media, and I hope that gets a response. They've got some tricky fixtures coming up. They've got Zalta at home, which is probably, maybe one of the worst fixtures they could have coming up, short of, playing club, I suppose, or maybe Union away, Mechelen away, and Standard at home. And I think he really needs to get some points on the board. I think he'll get a little bit of time, but you're not going to be able to carry on a run like this without a decision being taken kind of quite quickly. And I think he, along with a couple of other people, is in sticky water at the moment, purely because of as bad a start as you can get.
Yeah, what is it? 12 goals conceded. that's a nice average after three games. Again, could have been worse as well. Even on multiple occasions and throughout all of those games, even. So yeah, these things are looking very bleak for them for sure. Everything is falling apart there. Like Sharai actually indeed coming out like this is the first time he's so disappointed to actually be the manager of this team. Also going to the fans after the game, together with his squad, but like discussing and agreeing with them that this is not acceptable. Yeah, that's really yeah. These are bad signs, and of course they are fully focusing on this resale value of their players, and then like every Belgian club does to a certain extent, but they're taking it to an extreme level now. And yeah, that defense is indeed just not good enough currently, or not played in well enough, or like there's no organization. Because maybe you shouldn't even single out a whole one line, as Ben also mentioned, like the midfield is also even Haspolat. With Haspolat, I'm not sure. There might be a bit more balance, possibly, but like I'm not sure if the whole organization will be a lot better with him or without. And I think it's still a bit too attacking in general, maybe. So like there's this, I feel like there's this very big lack of defensive midfielders, or at least someone that is tracking back then in the at least in certain areas of the pitch there as well. Of course, they lost some players as well. They kind of had a whole. There is indeed a lot of turnover, like both in and outgoings, incomings and outgoings. There's been a lot of things going on. Some of them might have been a bit too much to take just too much turnover. Of course, this also means it still could click at some point. Now they need to maybe get through a rough spell that they didn't want or expect, but maybe eventually everything will click a bit better. Because as Scott mentioned, some of the incomings, many of the incomings are coming late. Yeah, but they've on top of their defensive issues, they of course also sold like Ferry, Sayat Manish, Alcocer. Not that he contributed in goals as much, but nonetheless he was an active player and an interesting player for them. So they traded in a lot of goals for sure. For at the moment, not that many goals yet. That might of course still come. Like I said, it's still good click, but it might need some time. They basically traded their whole front line as well as like a lot of other positions. So to a certain extent, it's quite expected that they would have a slow start. Maybe start thinking about it like this, but will they get out of that early enough is a big question. And yeah. I think in our season prediction, we or at least I should trade Westel and Zoltavarhem. It seems already early in the season, where for the one we were very hopeful for without real reasons for it, and the other with some reasoning but less hopeful. But in Zoltavarhem, but so far it's turning out differently. Still early days, of course, but so far that they are the negative surprise, I believe as well. But I think Ben actually found the solution, or like more the main issue for them as well. So I'll give him the word.
Yeah, so I was just having a quick look because I was like, I definitely hold my hands up during the preview. I was like, I like what they've done, but I think I liked what they've done because I was like, they haven't just gone and signed loads of 19, 18-year-olds from academies. They've actually signed players with footballing experience. The problem is they've signed a specialist in relegation, a man that is always getting relegated. The problem is he's masked his relegation tendencies because he's only ever done it when he's been out on loan.
Oh, no, wait. Wait. So there's still hope, Al. We come to circle back.
Abdoulaye Sissako's gone from specialist in relegation to like just the best defensive midfielder at his value point for ages. No, it's Cesar Sandra, guys. Like, you take the man out of Club Brugge and he just has to get relegated. Goes on loan to Excelsior for 2023-2024, relegated. Goes on loan to Willem 2 for 2024-2025, relegated. Doesn't go on loan, so he couldn't get relegated last year. But guess who he did play for? He played one game for Club Brugge next. Almost got relegated. He's a specialist in relegation, and they've signed him. And I apologise to him because I actually thought he was going to be quite a good player, and he still could be quite a good player. But he's clearly a specialist in relegation, so they've got a massive problem because they can't get rid of him because they've only just signed him.
Loan him out.
Yeah.
Send him to the Eredivisie. Canberra are probably going down. Send him there. Like that's
No,
where he
no,
can go.
loan him out to someone in the Pro League, obviously.
There we go. There you go.
Yeah.
Somebody one chance list.
You heard it here first, folks. Cisse Sandra is a Jonah.
But like, it's not even.
We're so unfair to him now. But okay.
I feel like I'm being really mean to him. It's obviously not his fault. He joined two pretty poor teams. Excelsior, to be fair, only got relegated via the playoffs, I think it was. And then Willem 2, they were just a bad team. They also had Kian Vassen, so like maybe he's a specialist in relegation. Who knows? But like, you look at the defense. Like, Bayram, I've probably banged on too much about how good I thought he was. Like, not in terms of like he's one of the best defenders in the Pro League, but I thought he was one of the best defenders Westerlo had. They've gone and got René Munz, who almost got relegated last season with Greuther Fürth, and only didn't get relegated because my team decided to be an absolute basket case on the last game of the season and get themselves relegated against his Greuther Fürth team. So they've signed a player that had a struggling season in the Zweite Bundesliga last year, and he's now a starting defender. Like, the defensive signings just haven't really been great, and the striking signings, it's kind of Norman Bassett or nothing at the moment in terms of the striker, isn't it? Like, that's your option up front. You are betting heavily that this man's going to score goals, which we've heard a lot, haven't we, throughout kind of the last couple of years about how he's going to be a goal scorer, he's going to do this, but we're yet to see it. And yes, he's only 21 and there's still time and it could work out with Essevee, but yeah, it's more concerning than like I probably gave it credit for at the beginning of the season, because for some reason I was just like, I don't want to like rag on them because I feel like they'll be fine and they'll do stuff, and they could still be fine. Like, it's a long season, but it's not a long season anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like, we haven't got the playoffs to save yourself, so you can start badly to an extent, but you can't start horrendously badly. But also on the flip side, Lom will get their first win. And Joris, I'm going to go back to you because I know your player of the week is from this game. So while we're kind of sticking, let's go to a little bit more of a positive kind of spin on things. And hopefully we're talking positive things about Westerlo next week. But let's talk some positivity about Lommel. First win in the Pro League, and one man decided to just like dish out the assist.
Exactly, that's my player of the week, Jason van Duiven, of course. Also because his career path is, of course, a bit weird, because, of course, he actually was a striker when he signed for Lommel, and now he's playing as right wing back maybe, but still, it's like very much more defensively, and like, well, he has a great cross, obviously, free kick, also. Another name I will still give a shout out in this section as well is Tom Reiners. That last goal, especially, that was a beaut. Honestly, one of the goals of the weekend for sure. But yeah, that's really 3 assists in one game, winning for the first time in 23 years, I guess, or since they're back anyway. So that must be 23 years indeed. They're off to a decent start with that win as well. Also, to be a bit more positive about Westerlo in the beginning, maybe that first half an hour in this game was actually not so bad. They were kind of dominating, but they indeed can't convert, and then they get hit, and right before the break they get hit again, of course. So that should not have happened. Of course, the luck was not in their favor in that game to a certain extent as well. Doesn't mean you need to lose 4-0, of course, though. That then all those arguments fade a bit away, of course, as well. That second half performance wasn't great from them. But okay, talking about Van Duiven, of course, yeah, he really wanted to give him a shout out because of that weird transition to a different position, and yeah, it's paying off, at least in this one game. We'll have to see how it will fare in the rest of the season, but in this one game it really paid off with just three brilliant assists, and yeah, some great. Some great goals in that game as well, and 4-0 to the Lommel. That we would have expected that to the Lommel side. So that's what is it? 4 points out of the possible 9, 1 win, 1 draw, 1 loss. That's a good average for them for sure. They would have signed for that in the beginning of the season, especially since we also know, okay, even though they are a bit more balanced, they have a few old heads, very old heads as well, even inexperienced heads in that squad. But they are a young squad, or they have a lot of young players and focus on development nonetheless as well. Still, so at the beginning of the season, already grabbing some points, not getting into that immediate struggle. Could be important for them if they will have a chance of survival, of course. Nothing to be said about that yet, but at least they are living in calm waters currently, going through calm waters, and that's always a nice boost you can get, as a promoted side. And I believe, yeah. Before we go back to the game, but Scott will also mention a player of them soon as well. Maybe let's go to Scott first. Sorry, I'm somehow hosting this tonight.
we might as well continue the Lommel loving, seeing as that's who we're talking about at the moment. Yeah, my transfer of the week, actually, since the transfer window is still open, folks, by the way, as of recording, still 10 days of absolute madness to go. So hold on to your pants. My transfer of the week is Don Angelo Canado, Lommel's new striker. Now, I like this for a number of reasons. One, because they needed to bring in competition and backup for the son of God, Ralph Sunchens. But the most interesting thing was Canado actually started this weekend ahead of Sunchens. He gets a goal in his debut. It doesn't get much better than that, really, from that perspective. He's come in from young Ajax on a season-long loan. They've got a purchase option. I just kind of, this was needed, and he started positively. Another thing worth saying about him as well is he's just got a brilliant name. I mean, Don Angelo Canado, he sounds like some kind of Limburg gangster. Do you know what I mean? If he keeps scoring, he's going to pick up a really interesting nickname from the home supporters.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one as well, because I'm pretty sure they were in for someone else from Ajax who then didn't actually want to come. So I don't know what the sequence of events was. It was like a fullback or something. I literally can't remember his name. He looked like he was going to join and he didn't. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if they were always going to get the two, or if it was like a pivot. But it's just funny to have like a striker at one end of his career and another one at the other end of his career. Like, although you can just do some things like it could be his son or something like that. Like all those sort of stuff is always quite funny. You couldn't start any better than that, to be fair. And yeah, I think I don't want to just keep repeating myself every week, but it is. I just think getting that first win as a newly promoted side is just so important, and getting it within the first 3 games is just crucial. I was thinking,
I can tell you the name, by the way, Tristan Gooyer, and that transfer seems to be going through actually in the end. So
he's going to. Okay, so I guess they're not really related,
but that's still a rumor from far, so that unofficial. But at least there's a chance that we'll see him as well, for sure. Yeah.
Because what was the one? Was it Thiago and Brentford and Club Brugge where they were actually in for someone else, and then it was exactly the same price for Thiago as it was for that person. For Nusa, yeah, that was it. Which is ironic because Thiago's banging goals in for Brentford, so they're fine. Well, they did miss a penalty, so maybe he's still up to his old tricks of missing a million chances before scoring goals. I haven't watched much of Premier League football to know that, so I'm sure Brentford fans can tell us if that is true or not. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting transfer. I'll go quickly circle back to my player of the week, which comes from the team in second place because they've won 3 games out of 3. They've scored 6 goals and they've only had 1 conceded, and that is Kevin van den Kerkhoff from Charleroi. And guys, to start the season, I know football ratings can be a bit iffy, but he's had an 8.1, an 8.0, and then this weekend he had an 8.5. Like, he's a really good player, and I think he's not, I don't think we spoke about him much last season at all, but there's just something about you stick an Algerian into Charleroi and just good things seem to happen, and he's the only one they've got at the moment because Zorgan's gone. Then it was Traoré was the one to look at. Traoré's gone. Now it's Van den Kerkhoff. He's the only, at the moment, I believe, the only Algerian player that they've got in the senior team. But another goal this weekend against Mechelen. It's such a good finish as well. Like, yeah, I really, really like him. Really like him. He's had such an interesting career as well. Like, he's been around the French football, been around Belgian lower leagues as well. Played for Raul or the La Louvière side from, I think it was in the 2017, 2018. Played for Olympique de Charleroi for a season as well, which is quite interesting. Then goes to Luxembourg, plays for Dudelange, Bastia, Metz is where he was most recently. And then, last season, I think he got 3 goals and 4 assists in 34 games, which is pretty good for a right back. 2 goals in 3 games already to start this season. Like, he's 30s, and I'm just such a big fan. He is, if you do the fantasy football for the Pro League, he is like, you just have to have him in as a defender because he does stuff, he scores goals and does things like that. So they've had a really good start to the season. Probably unfair maybe that we're not mentioning him. We mentioned Zultavagam over there and saw people kind of raise, but I feel like they played Leuven, Lommel and Mechelen, and no offence to those 3 teams, but like Lommel we just obviously spoke really, really nicely about because they had a really good game against Westel and that kind of those performances. But Leuven and Mechelen we didn't think were ready, and they have looked quite poor. And they didn't look great in this game either. But yeah, Kevin Van den Kerkhoff is my player of the week.
Good shout.
Joris, I'll go to you for your transfer. Yeah, I don't know if you've got any more honourable mentions you want to chuck in, and then we can go to your transfer of the week.
Well, I think they all got some mention already, to be honest. So like that was one. Then another one would have been Drame as well at Standard. Also worth mentioning, just the fact, not necessarily anything else, but it's already the third different Standard player to score twice this season in 3 games as well, after Abid and Ekertayenza, or his Iranian name, which I think he kind of officially now have done it before before him, of course, as well. So that's worth mentioning. Also, for that their first win, despite that, of course. But yeah, those were the main ones, I guess. There's one game we didn't talk enough about still, I guess, as well in Antwerp, Genk on the list. But Meija also, of course, made an impact substitute performance there as well. As much as it pains me, but to say that, but yeah, no, not really. And transfers, it's, to be honest, kind of difficult. I wanted to pick Konadu as well. There hasn't been that many transfers. Like, I believe there's been officially 5 transfers confirmed from officially Transfermarkt official confirmed 5 incoming transfers. The one I want to mention is probably again an outgoing, though maybe also another way to that you already touched on as well in the beginning, but also a way to circle back to that game as well, is Jules Ahoka as well, of course. You kind of said everything we need to say already, I guess, but like 4 games and sold for more than 10 million euros to Sunderland immediately. That's the way the footballing world goes now. They were, I guess they still have to sell a bit more than they should. Then would be wise, I guess, as well, because he would be a key man for them, for their midfield this season. Despite the comeback, I do think they still indeed, and in general, they played also in the first half. They're playing quite well. I do still feel like they might need someone else there still. Benitez is coming back, of course, but is that enough? I'm not sure. On the other hand, you can also say like he only played 4 games and 2 games this season, so I mean they have played without him already as well. Let's put it that way. But yeah, that's really the transfer of the Belgian league, I guess, for this week generally. Maybe you can even run over all the other ones, like Konadu, of course, was there. Dams, which I find a weird one, to be honest, to go to Club Brugge. I do not have in memory that he had the level that is required for such transfer for such clubs. But that's could have changed, of course, and of course he was a young player still. So when he left from PSV, he had to leave as well. So I guess they threw him a lifeline as well, in a way, and a really good lifeline. And there's a good environment in the they have been good in their wing backs for sure, or wing backs or backs in general at Club in recent years as well. Yeah, and then there's also Krobach, or how is it called? Is it? I need to quickly check. But the central defender already made his debut in the meantime for Beveren. After they were already down in this game, in the game we discussed before, of course. Yeah, I can't really pick him as my transfer of the week because I just don't know him, to be honest. And I mean that there was that game, of course. I don't think they conceded after he came in. At least there's that. But I mean that does say literally nothing. I think specifically. So yeah, we will have to see how he will. Well, all we can say is that I hope he performs well, because they will need it based on that performance of the last weekends. Actually, because last week also Schenk was still their main man at the back. Yeah, and then I believe we're almost there, but like Eerthuizen at Mechelen is similar. Basically, that's a nice leeway to that, I guess. Like they need to solve that problem at the back. Will he do it? Not convinced, but maybe. At least they have some more personnel now, of course, and hopefully he has more luck than the previous one in that position. And I think we're almost there then. I think so. My transfer out of the week is really the outgoing one of Ahoka, honestly, to sum it up. And yeah, Antwerp still did well without him, to be honest. So that's a positive sign, of course. Even though things could have sounded a lot more differently if the game would have ended like 10 minutes earlier, for example. Yeah, they still would have had a decent first half, but the second half largely wasn't their best performance. Is an understatement until somehow they got back into the game, for sure.
Yeah, Mikkel Frey top scorer with 4 goals. I thought when I saw it, I was like, he'll just come back on loan, but nah, he's just gone. Which I thought was quite interesting. I thought there'd be like we'll loan him back out, but I don't know. Maybe they think they can use him this season. I'll be interested to see if he does play much. I know they've obviously wanted players for because they're going to be in Europe and stuff like that. So I don't know. Maybe we're going to get game time. One I don't think you mentioned. I don't know if you did. Taufik Bentayeb, signing for Anderlecht.
Deliberately left him out because I knew you were calling it.
Yeah, he was going to be my signing of the week. So technically he joins from Union Turaga Sportif in Rabat, but he hasn't played there for 2 seasons. I think he kind of started there, came through their system, then goes to Rodez in France, scores 11 goals in 30 games. Last season he's with Troyes, helps them get promoted to Ligue 1. So he scores 20 goals in 31 games in the second tier. So pretty decent kind of return for him. He joins Anderlecht as one of their new strikers. Yeah, I'm really intrigued to see how he gets on. It seems like a slightly more interesting transfer than I was giving them credit for at the beginning of the season, when I was like, I don't think the transfers are that interesting, but this one is an interesting transfer. Yeah, I guess Bertuccini's probably going to go, because I presume Sikan looks like the main man. You're then going to have Skretzovic, you're going to have Bentayeb. Like Bertuccini doesn't really fit into that kind of that structure and that mold. So yeah, he's 24-year-old Moroccan striker. Yeah, it's really interesting. It's like I can't remember how much money it was, but it's a pretty good outlay for Turiga Sportif. I don't know how much people know about them, but they're not one of the big Moroccan teams. One of the smaller teams in Rabat, but I know they've got a pretty decent kind of academy structure in place. Like lots of these Moroccan teams do now. They're kind of built on the academy process, and they'll just get players through and stuff. So yeah, really interested to see how he gets on in Anderlecht. They obviously didn't play this weekend because of European football. What was I going to say? They should get through. They really should get through, shouldn't they, guys? So they're currently 3-0 up against Skyrat Almaty. Ghent drew 0-0 with Hibs. Davy Reef with another penalty save. Welcome to the Pro League, Hibs fans. That is kind of what to expect when you come around here. And the St Julian guys, they got a year win in Europe. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Who would have thought that it would come so late, and the man that would score it would be the experience of how can I not pronounce his name properly? What am I doing?
Let him struggle. I'll let him struggle.
Yes. Taniguchi, that was it. I didn't want to get it wrong. I was like, I could see him, and I saw the goal and everything. I was like, I know who he is. I just don't want to get it, butcher it. Yeah, what a moment it was for them to get that. It's going to be tricky, I guess, going over to Cyprus for the return leg, but I think Conference League football would actually be a bit better, if I'm being honest for them. I think it would, but hey, if they get Europa League, they get Europa League. That'd be pretty cool. Scott, you'll be in Scotland. Obviously, you already are in Scotland, but you'll be in a slightly different part of Scotland to watch Ghent against Hibs. What do you reckon? Obviously, you've probably seen Hibs a lot more than me and yours have. Do you think Ghent can do it, or do you think Ghent are going to be very Genty and crash out and just miss out on European football?
I think Ghent can do it, but Ghent are going to have to do kind of what they've been struggling a little bit to do, and that is take their chances. We know there's a lot of good, technically really good footballers in the side. Their game management is mostly strong. You just have that lingering doubt of whether they're going to have enough of a killer instinct. What's interesting here is I hear on the grapevine from some Scottish media sources who are reliable that it's looking very much like it's going to be a sellout on Thursday night. I'm going to Edinburgh. I will be at Easter Road, which is a good ground, by the way. When that's full, that's you get a nice atmosphere there. Hibs will be hoping that home advantage will be enough for them. There is margin of error here for Ghent that's kind of quite small for me. They're going to have to play well. They're going to have to play well because the stands at Easter Road are steeply raked. That crowd gets right on top of you. Vocal crowd, good fan base. The Hibs fans, they have a reputation for it. So I think it could be a tricky night for Ghent, and I think the first goal will always be very important as well in these ties. But the fact that it's a one-game shootout for qualification for the league phase has really brought the Hibs fans out, and they've bought lots of tickets that they might not have bought because they sense blood. So it's a tricky one for Rick DeMille to find the right equation for this. But yes, I do think Ghent can do it, but it's going to be tricky, I think.
The most important game for the Belgian coefficient of all season. This one is going to be. I disagree with Scott. Of course, they don't need to score. They don't need to do that. They've kept 5 clean sheets in the 7 games they played so far, and they've got David Hoove in goal. So, I mean, secure that back, and they will be fine. But of course, yes, the home crowd will play its role, and we will have to see how they handle that because, yes, they have indeed gotten 5 clean sheets and haven't lost yet in those 7 games, but they haven't been to such a hostile atmosphere yet. I think at least also in combination with the quality of the side that they are facing. They actually should have won that home tie, of course, as well. But they indeed were not creating enough chances and not taking the few they got as well. So that's a bit of a shame. But yes, as Ben mentioned, they also got lucky in that the one shot the Hibs got on target was that penalty that got saved by that man. The man, the legend, Davy Roof. By now, I think it's 4 or 5 penalty series in a row that he's penalty series as well. That's actually a different topic, of course, Bill, but that he has won with them. But just in general, he also in the 90 minutes he regularly takes a penalty. Holds a penalty. I mean, holds him out, and that's. Can he be their talisman this time around as well? That's a question, and hopefully, indeed, can they score up front? Because as we are alluding to here, I guess as well with everything we're saying, they have not been the most exciting sides to watch. They have been relatively efficient with what they've got, but not necessarily. I mean, more in the points haul, not necessarily in taking the chances they create either. So that will be necessary there. decent, a very decent squad. Is it enough? I mean, it's really 50-50. It was also the reason why I was on that radio show last Friday as well, that tie. There I also said it 50-50, and I stand with that for sure, because because the factors I just mentioned, actually, that defense is actually seeming to be okay for Ghent this season. Will it remain that way is the question.
If you are of the Hibs persuasion, and you live in the UK, then you might want to check out some of the Hibs podcast. I was on a big Hibs podcast last week, and they got back in touch with me today to say they loved having me so much, and I was so popular. Would I come back on ahead of Thursdays? So if you're a Hibs fan and you do listen to your Hibs podcast, then you'll probably find me returning in your ears before the game. So that was nice to get that invite. So I look forward to kind of picking apart this in a bit more detail. But yeah, I'm with Joris. This is very much up in the air.
Yeah, and Hibs do have Reading legend Jordan Abita in their squad, so it is even more difficult for Ghent playing up against a man with such star quality. To be honest, it's got to go to penalties if they're going to go through. I don't think they can win it in normal time or extra time. I don't know. I feel like I'm a stickler for like when people are like, "Oh, it's a really tough place to go." They're usually talking about like Turkey or something, aren't they? And then you go and you win like 5-0 or like. You go to Belgrade and you win like 10-0 because I don't think Red Star have been in a European competition for ages or something stupid. But this does feel like a really tough place to go. Do you know what I mean? I think like Scott, when we went to that Kilmarnock game, I was like, oh, flipping it. Yeah, like this is like, there's this excitement, this joy and this pressure from like the Scottish fans when it's like a full stadium. Like we saw it at the World Cup. Do you know what I mean? Like Scottish fans, like when they get going, they get going. So I think Ghent, they should be prepared for it, but it's Ghent, and they're like the team I trust the least out of all the Belgian teams, apart from potentially like Anderlecht in this situation. Like, I thought I wouldn't be able to trust Anderlecht going to Almaty, which is another one that people have been like, oh, it's a really tough place to go because it's bloody miles away, and they just went 1-3-0. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, they're tough places to go for these professional footballers that they can deal with it. But Christian Burgess with a bit of shithousery away from home. Like, if there's ever a man you want in a situation like that, it is Big Chris, isn't it? Like, I feel like he'll do something to get the fans riled up and kind of get the team going. So enjoy that. I'm sure, it's a bit of a safer territory for you than going to watch a Belgian team play Rangers, that's for sure. So you can be a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah, I've been to Ibrox a lot over the last few years, so much so that somebody started a malicious rumour that I had a season ticket there. Now that's just awful. That's awful.
But have you been there more often than at Celtic Park lately?
Yeah, that's the question.
Well, unfortunately, the answer to that is yes.
Okay, you dug yourself a hole. Thank you to the hole.
The rumours can keep going. Let's go into the second tier because we've got 2 rounds of that done. Scott, back over to you for more comfortable conversations about second tier football.
Yeah, very glad to have moved on from that. Dug myself out of that hole. So the CPL Matchday 2, what happened this weekend? Anderlecht Futures lost to Verton. Lokeren beat Eupen 2-1. Club Next got some points on the board. They won 3-1 against Serang. Dender beat Beerschot 2-0. Liers beat Patro Eisden 2-1. Young Genk lost 3-2 to RFC Liège, and Frank Baran lost to Sporting Hasselt. So what's happening in the CPL? Well, on things that I didn't think were going to be in my bingo card at any point this season, never mind on match day 2, Verton top. That's just something I didn't think I was going to see under any circumstances. But yeah, they're on top on goal difference from Lokeren and Sporting Hasselt, who've had a really good start, actually, the newbies, which is kind of good to see, actually, aside finding their feet kind of early. I like that. Other things worthy of note are, I'm sure some of you have seen Robin Mirasola's wonder goal. I mean, it was kind of a wonder goal, incredible flick. For his goal for Young Genk this weekend. Go and check that out on social media. That was kind of quite something, worth watching a few times. And another bit of news, Lokeren, who started the season positively, have had their transfer ban lifted. So the sporting department at Lokeren are going to have to run around like headless chickens over the next 10 days and try and catch up with the recruitment that they couldn't the files they couldn't pursue, but can now. So we'll see what they can do. But they've started positively regardless. Not much more to say other than that because it's still very early days.
Which is a miracle, to be honest. Like with the squad they had, like they couldn't even sign any free players or anything. So that yeah, I mean, very good start from OK. Indeed, I would say that's maybe even the. Although all three sides there on the top indeed are quite surprisingly there. They all won their games. Regardless of their opponents, of course, we'll have to see later on in the season how much weight there is, but all three off to a very good start.
I've just discovered something absolutely remarkable, people, that I think we definitely need to talk about. So I spoke about him last week because he scored a hat-trick. Abdul Samad Hakam for Verton scored again this weekend. So he's got 4 goals in 2 games. That's more than he got last season from the whole season for Red Star. But according to FootMob, he was in 2 places at once this weekend. He was scoring and playing 87 minutes against Anderlecht Futures. And somehow on the same day at the same I think nearly around the same time, he also played for Red Star against Boulogne for half. So he somehow played a half game in France and a full game in the Pro League, in the second tier. Like, this man needs to be investigated. He's got that thing that Hermione has in Harry Potter where she can like stop time and go and do other things at once. I had to literally go onto Transfermarkt now and be like, this isn't right. Like, surely he can't do that. This isn't like those players that can play, like you can play a bit for your youth team in the second tier and then go off and play for your first team on the same weekend. But no, something's happened, and someone else has played for Red Star because he was very much only playing for Verton this weekend. But just in case anyone's on football and is very, very confused as to how a man played in 2 places at one time, so he's definitely one to keep an eye on with that goal. If he can keep that up, that goal scoring record, I mean, yeah. 4 goals in 2 games. You can't really ask for more when you join a new team, really, can you? And it is a funny looking table with Verton and Hasselt kind of in that top 5. And obviously, I said Eupen are definitely getting promoted, and then they lost, so I've cursed them for the season. So sadly, Eupen are not getting promoted. That's not going to happen.
Do you know it's wild as well because some of you may not know that Verton, who are not a side that are going to get talked about too much, even by us, admittedly. Although if they keep going the way they're going just now, we might be talking about them in a lot more detail. But they're actually owned by a certain N'Golo Kante as well, which those of you who don't follow your Belgian football closely might not know. He's not an unknown name. Bizarre, interesting little club. Quite an interesting coaching appointment they made in the summer as well. Somebody with a lot of experience of Belgian football. So, he's obviously made some improvements there that are starting to take effect for a club that effectively, despite having a very high profile owner, actually have no money. So it'll be interesting to see if we get a chance to return to this one and maybe even do a special episode in Verton at some point because they are situated in a very interesting and lovely part of the world.
They also did have, for those of you who are long-term listeners back in the day, if you remember me banging on about Suleiman Anne constantly when he played for Verton. I was like, I wonder what he's doing these days. I think he's in the French third tier. So, yeah, good old Suleiman Anne.
Some more things to add, of course. Equally surprising, actually, as those 3 sides topping the table, it's indeed that 3 title favorites, I guess, in Eupen, Patro, and Beerschot all lost this weekend. And, I mean, as you can hear, a lot of wins and losses. Well, indeed, still no draw. So the table is still looking very nicely, like Ben likes it.
Keep again, people.
One added number in the sixes, of course. The 666 even in this days. So I don't know what omen we are expecting there, but yeah, or what that is for. But we will have to wait and see about that. But 6s, 3s, and nils. That's all we got so far.
It's the Americanization of the second tier. There's just you can't draw. It's just wins and losses, people. Wins and losses. Great. I enjoyed that. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I think that's probably it for this evening. We'll be back next week. We'll talk about kind of Scott's trip to Edinburgh. I presume we'll probably just mainly focus on the football, unless you get up to any shenanigans that are worth mentioning. We'll obviously talk about, if there are any transfers, we may drop that segment if we don't think there's any more interesting transfers. If you've got a question for us, feel free to get in touch.
It usually calms down by the end of the window in
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
experience, right? Never, nothing happens
people
anymore.
are really good at getting they get their transfers in early, to be honest, don't they? Like no one's making deadline day signings in the Pro League or doing things crazy or I'm sure nothing will happen. But yeah, if you like what you've heard and you want to leave us a review, please do on your podcast app of choice. It really does help kind of spread the word about Belgian football. If you're feeling particularly generous, you can donate to us at Buy Me a Coffee, which will be linked in the show notes below. There'll be links to Scott's Substack and there'll be links to anything else that we do. It's all in there. Just go have a little look. But as always, thank you very much for listening and we'll speak to you again very soon on another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast.